In this video, I'm going to show you some of the commonly used string methods in Python. As you can see, I have some string variables set up and ready to go. And down here in the print function, I have the space string in here, and I'm going to go ahead and run this just to show that too many spaces does get printed out with all this extra space before it and after it, although we can't actually tell that the extra space is after it. It's there. So on the space string, I am going to use the strip method to remove that white space. So I'm going to type in .strip and some parentheses. And when I hover over this, it'll tell us that it returns a copy of the string with leading and trailing white space removed. If chars is given and not none, remove characters and chars instead. Chars would be an optional argument that we could pass in here. And if we don't pass anything in here, it's going to remove any white space. And if we did, it would look for the characters in that string that we pass in to remove from the beginning and end of the string. So when I run this, we'll see that too many spaces outputs, and it's removed these spaces from the start and end. Next thing I want to show you is the left and right strip methods, which work just like strip, but left strip only works on the left side of the string and right strip only works on the right side of the string. And that's what I have the dash string here for, so that we can actually see this happen. So I'm going to switch this over to dash string, and we'll start with the left strip. And for an argument, since I'm trying to remove dashes and not the white space, I am going to pass it in a dash string. And when I run this, we'll see that we get too many dashes with the dashes removed from the left side. And if I switch this over to rstrip, it will remove the dashes from the right side. So now we have our string here with the dashes removed from the right side. And to show how the strip method actually works, I have this symbol string here that has a caret, asterisk, and dash, and they're not in any kind of order. And then there's a hashtag here on each side. So I'm going to switch this to the symbol string variable, go back to the strip method, and this time in parentheses, I'm going to pass it a string with the caret, asterisk, and dash in it. And how this works is it's going to look at this first character and see if this character is anywhere inside this string that we've passed in as an argument. And if it is, it removes it. And then it goes on to the next character and so on and so forth until it reaches a character that is not in this value that we passed in. Once the left side's done, it goes to the right side, and it does the same thing. It checks the very last character against the string that we passed in. If it's there, it removes it and moves on to the next character. And it does that until it runs into a character that is not in the string. So when I run this, it's going to return this string here with all these symbols on either side of it removed. And when I run it, we can see that we get that string right here. The next methods that I want to show you return Boolean values, and they are endswith and startswith, and we're going to use those on this quote string here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this and put in quote instead. And we will start with startswith. And if I hover over this, it tells us that it returns true if S, which is the string that we're checking, starts with the specified prefix, which is the string that we are looking for, false otherwise, with optional start and end arguments for the start and end of the search. So if I wanted to start searching at not and end searching at bug, I could pass in some optional start and end parameters. But for now, we're just going to start at the beginning of the string, and we're going to look for the word it. And if I run this, because it is the beginning of this string here, we're going to get the output true. And if I were to look for the word is, which is not the start of this string, and run it, we get the output false. Endswith works the same way. It looks to see if the last characters in the string match the characters in the string that we pass in it. So if I look for the characters RE, it will return true. And if I looked for something that wasn't there, it would return false. The next method I want to show you is the replace method, which will take an argument to search for a substring within a string, and then another argument to replace that string. So I'm going to go ahead and do the .replace method here. If I hover over it, it tells us that it returns a copy with all occurrences of substring old replaced by new, and then it also has an optional count, so that if I wanted to only replace 1, 2, 3, or however many I specified, that's all it would replace. So for this, I'm going to go through and replace all the spaces with dashes. So for the first argument, I will put in a blank space between some quotes. And then the second argument, I will pass in a dash. And when I run this, it will return this quote with dashes instead of spaces, which we see right here. And then if I wanted to, I could pass in an optional argument of, let's say 3, so it only replaces the first 3 spaces. And if I run that, we'll see that here, that it is not A is separated by a dash, and then the rest of the quote is separated by spaces. The next method I want to show you is the split method. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the replace method here and put the split method in. And if we hover over this, it tells us that the split method returns a list of the substrings in the string using sep as the separator string. When set to none, which is the default value if we don't pass in any arguments, it will split on any white space character and discard empty strings from the results. So what that means is that if I don't pass in any argument here, it's going to split this string at each one of these spaces, and it's going to return all these individual words in a list. So if I run that now, we'll see that we get this list output down here, which is denoted by the square brackets, and then separated by commas are the individual words that are inside quotes indicating that they are strings. Now, if I wanted to split this at a specific character or a specific word, I could pass that value in. So let's say I wanted to split it at the word is. If I run this, we'll see I get it, not a bug it, and a feature. And you'll notice that the word is not in this list. So if you were to do this and maybe there's a word in here that has the characters is in it, so I'll go ahead and just add them in the middle of the word feature here. If I run this, we'll see that it actually splits it there too. So if you're going to split it by a word, just be mindful that that might also split actual words where you don't want it to split. The next thing I want to show you is method chaining. So when we call this method here, it is returning a value, and that value can have another dot notation method call on it just the way this one here could. So I'm going to change this back to dash string. And the first thing that I'm going to do is strip it of its dashes. So I'm going to go ahead and call the strip method and pass in a dash as an argument. And this is going to return the string too many dashes. So right here, I can do another dot notation, and this time I can call the upper method, which will change all these characters to be uppercase. And then I can call the split method, and I'm going to leave it blank. And when I run this now, it's going to return this here as a list with these 3 words in it, all uppercase. When I run that, we'll see that we have our list with all uppercase words down here. The last thing I want to show you in this video is the join method. And just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to create a new variable called myList, and I am going to give it the value that is returned by our chain methods here. And then down here, I am going to use the join method. Now the join method takes a string and it inserts that string in between iterables. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a blank space, and I want to rejoin my list, which is currently this list of the uppercase 2, many, and dashes. And I want to rejoin it into a single string that is separated by spaces. So I'm going to do a space, then dot join, and then in parentheses. And if I hover over this here, it's going to tell us here that it concatenates any number of strings. The string whose method is called is inserted in between each given string. So in the join method here, I'm going to pass it my list. When I run this now, we will get the output string too many dashes. Now, if I wanted to, I could add maybe 2 dashes in here. And if I run this, we'll get too many dashes again with the dashes in here instead. This works on any iterable. So a string is an iterable. You can iterate over each of these characters. So if I wanted to, I could pass in the dash string. And if I run this, it's going to give us this here, which is a whole bunch of dashes where it's trying to put these 2 dashes and spaces in between every single character that's in this string here. What I've shown you in this video is only a few of the many string methods that are available in Python. I encourage you to look through the standard Python library documentation and look at some of the other methods that are available and practice them on your own.